Blood doesn't wash out of sand the way it washes out of linoleum, and I learned that on June 7th, 1944, on a beach in Normandy, France. I was 26 years old, First Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, Army Nurse Corps, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I'd trained for 2 years. I'd worked in military hospitals stateside, treated training accidents and appendicitis and pneumonia. I'd read the manuals, practiced the procedures, prepared myself for war. Nothing prepares you for war. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, middle-class family, good schools. My mother wanted me to be a teacher. I wanted to be a nurse, seemed more practical, more useful. Got my RN in 1940, worked at Providence Hospital for 2 years before Pearl Harbor changed everything. After December 7th, everything was different. Boys were enlisting, factories were running 3 shifts. Everyone wanted to do their part. I joined the Army Nurse Corps in January 1942. Seemed like the right thing to do. Serve my country, help the boys who were going to fight. The recruitment posters made it look noble. Clean white uniforms, grateful soldiers, modern hospitals with proper equipment. Angels of mercy, they called us, helping heal America's heroes. The reality was different. We shipped out to England in March 1944. The build-up for the invasion everyone knew was coming. Our field hospital, the 45th, was assigned to follow the assault waves onto the beaches, set up as close to the front as possible. Mobile surgery, immediate care, stabilize the wounded and get them back to England. Simple, efficient. The plan made sense on paper. I was excited, nervous, determined. I was going to save lives. I was going to make a difference. I had 15 other nurses in my unit, good women, smart, capable. We'd trained together, become friends. Helen Kowalski from Chicago, always laughing. Dorothy Chen from San Francisco, quiet but brilliant. Mary O'Sullivan from Boston, tough as nails. Betty Williams from Alabama, who sang while she worked. We thought we were ready. We practiced setting up tents in the rain, treating simulated casualties, working under pressure. Our head nurse, Captain Elizabeth Morrison from New York, drilled us constantly. When we hit that beach, there's no room for mistakes, no second chances. You do your job or boys die. We understood, or we thought we did. The night before D-Day, we were on a transport ship in the Channel. Nobody slept. We could hear the planes going over, thousands of them, heading for France. The ship was packed with soldiers, boys really, most of them younger than me. They tried to act confident, brave, but I could see the fear in their eyes. One kid, couldn't have been more than 19, asked me if I was scared. Yes, I told him, but we're going to be okay. All of us. I lied to him. I didn't know I was lying at the time, but I was. His name was Private James Parker from Iowa. I know because I held his hand while he died 2 days later, his intestines in my lap, asking for his mother, 19 years old, never made it off Omaha Beach alive, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We went in on D-Day +1, June 7th, after the assault troops had supposedly secured the beach. Secured turned out to be a relative term. The Germans were still shelling from inland positions. Bodies were still washing up with the tide. Our landing craft hit the beach at 0700 hours. The ramp dropped and we saw it for the first time. Omaha Beach, the blood and the bodies and the wreckage. "Oh, my God," Helen whispered beside me. Captain Morrison's voice cut through. "Move! Get off the beach now!" We ran, hauling our medical bags, our equipment, our supplies, running across sand that was red in places, literally red with blood, dodging debris, blown-up vehicles, shell craters, equipment, bodies, so many bodies. Some were covered with blankets or tarps. Others weren't. Men who'd died yesterday, still lying where they'd fallen. Engineers were trying to clear them, but there were too many. The smell hit you, death and cordite and salt water and something else, something sweet and rotten that I'd later learn was the smell of a lot of men dying in a small space. We made it to the seawall where they'd set up the casualty collection point. It wasn't a hospital. It was a pile of medical supplies under a tarp, some stretchers, and about 50 wounded men lying in the sand waiting for treatment. "This is it?" Dorothy asked, looking around. "This is it," Morrison said. "Get to work." The wounded just kept coming, litter bearers bringing them down from the bluffs, from the forward positions. Gut shots, sucking chest wounds, traumatic amputations, burns, shell shock. Everything the human body can survive and everything it can't. I knelt beside the first boy they brought me. Leg wound, femoral artery hit, bleeding badly. I put pressure on it, tried to get a tourniquet on him. My hands were shaking. "You're okay," I told him. "You're going to be okay." He died while I was working on him. Just stopped. Bled out in the sand despite everything I did. I moved to the next one. By noon, my uniform was soaked with blood, not just spots, completely soaked. The sand where we were working was red and wet. We were kneeling in it, sitting in it, working in it. Blood doesn't wash out of sand. It just soaks in and stays there. The wounded kept coming. We worked without stopping. Tourniquets, pressure bandages, morphine, plasma, trying to stabilize them enough to survive the trip back to England. Some we could help. Others were too far gone. We'd give them morphine, hold their hands, let them die as comfortably as we could. That's what triage means, sorting, deciding who gets treatment and who doesn't, who lives and who dies. They taught us the theory in training. The reality is looking at a 19-year-old boy with half his chest blown away and deciding to let him die so you can save the one next to him who might survive. The reality is those boys looking at you with trust, believing you'll save them and knowing you can't. We worked on that beach for 3 days before they moved us inland. 3 days of continuous casualties, no break, no rest. You'd work until you literally couldn't stand anymore. Collapse for a few hours, wake up, and start again. The second day, they brought in a soldier who'd stepped on a mine. Both legs gone at the knees, one arm gone at the elbow. He was conscious, screaming. The morphine wasn't touching his pain. We stabilized him, got plasma going, stopped the bleeding as best we could. "Am I going to be okay?" he kept asking. "Tell me I'm going to be okay." "What do you say? That he'd lost 3 limbs and would spend the rest of his life as a triple amputee? That he'd never walk again? Never hold his wife with both arms, never be the person he was?" "You're going to make it," I told him. "You're going to live." He lived. I saw him later at a hospital in England. He looked at me like he wished I'd let him die on that beach. Dorothy Chen broke on the second day. A soldier came in with his face half gone. Landmine, they said. Still alive somehow, still conscious. She took one look at him and started screaming. Just stood there screaming until Morrison slapped her across the face. "Pull yourself together, Lieutenant. That boy needs you." Dorothy pulled herself together, treated him, cleaned his wounds, gave him morphine. She never smiled again after that, not once in all the time I knew her. The burns were the worst. We started getting them on the 3rd day. Tank crews, flamethrower accidents, fuel fires. Burns are, there's no way to describe it that isn't grotesque. The smell alone would make you vomit. Cooking meat and chemicals and death. One boy, tank driver, his entire lower body was burned, 3rd and 4th degree. His legs were charcoal. He was in shock, kept asking about his crew. "Did they make it? Did my guys make it?" They hadn't. His whole crew was dead. He was the only one who'd gotten out, and he was dying too, just taking longer. I lied to him. "They're fine. They all made it." He smiled, actually smiled. "Good. That's good." He died an hour later. I'm glad I lied. We lost Betty Williams on the 4th day. German artillery had been hitting the beach sporadically, but we'd been lucky. Our luck ran out. A shell hit maybe 30 yards away, shrapnel flying everywhere. Betty was treating a patient, back to the blast. The shrapnel caught her across the shoulders and neck. She went down without a sound. We tried to save her. Morrison worked on her, but the carotid was severed. Betty bled out in about 2 minutes, there on the sand, surrounded by the wounded she'd been trying to help. She was 24 years old, from Mobile, engaged to a sailor who didn't find out she was dead until 2 weeks later. We buried her that evening, wrapped in a blanket, in a temporary cemetery behind the beach. No time for ceremony, no time for grief. The wounded kept coming. Mary O'Sullivan stopped talking after that, just did her work in complete silence. When you asked her something, she'd nod or shake her head, but no words. She never spoke again as far as I know. Another casualty, just not the kind they count. They moved us inland on June 10th to a field hospital set up in a bombed-out French village. The fighting had moved forward. Now we were getting casualties from the hedgerow battles, the grinding close-range combat as our boys tried to break out of the beachhead. Different wounds, more small arms fire, less shrapnel, lots of head wounds from snipers, lots of boys who'd been shot at close range, ambushed in the narrow lanes between the hedgerows. The field hospital was better than the beach. We had tents, cots, surgical equipment. We could actually operate, do real medicine, but the volume of casualties didn't decrease. If anything, it got worse. We worked in shifts now, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, except there was no off. You'd finish your shift and collapse in your tent for a few hours, but the sound of the wounded would wake you up. The screaming, the crying, the desperate calls for Mother or God or anyone who could make the pain stop. I stopped sleeping well. None of us did. You'd close your eyes and see the faces of the ones who didn't make it. Private Parker asking for his mother. The tank driver asking about his crew. Betty Williams bleeding out on the sand. Helen Kowalski started drinking. Nothing heavy, just enough whiskey each night to knock herself out. Captain Morrison knew, but didn't stop her. What was she going to do? We were all coping however we could. The amputations were constant. Gas gangrene from dirty wounds, injuries too severe to save the limb, vascular damage. We had 3 surgical tents running continuously. I assisted on hundreds of amputations that summer. Arms, legs, hands, feet. Cutting away parts of boys to save the rest of them. They'd wake up in recovery and realize what they'd lost. Some took it stoically. Others would scream, cry, beg us to tell them it wasn't real. The worst were the ones who'd just lie there, staring at where their leg used to be, silent tears running down their faces. What am I going to tell my girl? One boy asked me. 18 years old, both legs gone below the knee. How am I going to tell her I'm half a man now? You're not half a man, I said. You're a hero. She'll understand. I don't know if she did. I hope so. We got a new doctor in July. Captain David Greenberg from New York, trained surgeon, barely 30. He was good, fast, skilled, saved a lot of boys who would have died. But he couldn't save them all. After about 2 weeks, he came out of surgery one night, pulled off his bloody gloves, and just stood there. His hands were shaking. I can't do this anymore, he said quietly. I can't keep cutting pieces off of children. They're not children, Morrison said. They're soldiers. They're 19 years old. That's children. He kept working, kept operating, but something had broken in him, same as it had broken in all of us. My breaking point came in August during the Falaise pocket. The Germans were trapped, being hammered by artillery and airstrikes. The casualties were horrific on both sides. They brought in a German soldier, 17 years old maybe, hit by artillery, severe abdominal wounds. He was dying, clearly dying, but conscious. We're not treating Krauts, one of the orderlies said. We've got American boys who need help. I looked at the German kid. He was terrified, in pain, crying, calling for his mother in German. I didn't speak the language, but I knew what mutter meant. He's a patient, I said. We treat patients. I started working on him, tried to stabilize the bleeding, started plasma, gave him morphine. He grabbed my hand, held it tight, said something in German I didn't understand. An American soldier on the next cot, gut wound, stable, was watching. Why are you helping him? He was trying to kill us. Right now, he's just a scared kid who's dying. I couldn't save the German boy. His wounds were too severe. He died holding my hand, just like so many American boys had died holding my hand. Same age, same fear, same desperate need for someone to be there at the end. When he was gone, I went outside the tent and broke down, just completely broke, sat in the mud behind the hospital and sobbed. For him, for Betty, for Private Parker, for all of them, for the absurdity of it all. For the fact that we were sending children to kill other children and then expecting people like me to glue the survivors back together. Morrison found me there, sat down beside me in the mud. You did the right thing, she said, treating him. Did I? We've got American boys dying because we don't have enough supplies, enough time, enough hands, and I used our morphine on a German. You used our morphine on a 17-year-old kid who was dying scared and alone. That's what nurses do. What if I can't do this anymore? What if I'm done? She was quiet for a moment. You are done. We're all done. We were done the day we landed on that beach. But we keep going anyway, because those boys need us. Because if we stop, more of them die. So I kept going. We all kept going. The war in Europe ended in May 1945. We were in Germany by then, treating the last waves of casualties. When the news came through that Germany had surrendered, everyone celebrated, cheering, crying, hugging. I felt nothing, just empty, number. They sent us home in stages. I got back to Portland in August 1945 after Japan surrendered. My family threw a welcome home party. Everyone wanted to hear about my experiences, about the brave soldiers I'd saved, about the adventure of it all. I couldn't tell them. How do you explain what it's like to watch boys die? How do you describe the smell of a field hospital, or the sound of someone screaming while you amputate their leg, or the weight of deciding who lives and who dies? You don't. You smile and say it was hard but rewarding. You accept their thanks. You move on with your life, except you don't move on. You're still there, still on that beach, kneeling in bloody sand, still in that field hospital, holding the hand of a dying child, American or German. It doesn't matter anymore. They're all just children. I tried going back to civilian nursing, lasted 6 months, couldn't do it. Every patient reminded me of the war. Every emergency made me freeze up. I'd see a trauma come in, and I'd be back in Normandy, surrounded by the dying, unable to save them all. I had nightmares. Still have them, 20 years later. Betty Williams bleeding out. Private Parker calling for his mother. The German boy holding my hand. The tank driver asking about his crew. They're all there, every night, waiting for me to save them. And I can't. I never could. Helen Kowalski became an alcoholic. Last I heard, she was in and out of sanitariums, couldn't hold a job, couldn't function. The war took her as surely as it took Betty Williams, just took longer to kill her. Dorothy Chen never recovered from that soldier with no face. She worked as a nurse for a few more years, but she was like a ghost, going through the motions, but not really there. She died in 1952. They said it was an accident. An overdose of sleeping pills. I don't think it was an accident. Mary O'Sullivan, who stopped talking, spent 10 years in a veterans hospital for psychiatric care, never spoke again, never recovered. The silence that started on Omaha Beach never ended. Captain Morrison, Elizabeth, she kept nursing until 1960, worked at veterans hospitals, took care of the boys who came back broken. She'd visit me sometimes, and we'd sit together without talking much. Two women who'd seen too much, carrying too much. She died last year, heart attack, but I think it was really just exhaustion. Yeah, the weight of all those years, all those boys, all that grief, it finally crushed her. It's 1964 now, 20 years since Normandy. I'm 46 years old, never married, tried once, but couldn't make it work. How do you explain to someone that you wake up screaming, that crowds make you panic, that you can't watch the news because any mention of casualties sends you back to that beach? I work as a school nurse now. Elementary school in Portland. Simple stuff. Scraped knees, bloody noses, stomach aches. Nothing serious. Nothing that reminds me of the war. Except everything reminds me of the war. A child falls on the playground, blood on the concrete, and I'm back on Omaha Beach. A boy comes in with a broken arm, crying, and I hear Private Parker calling for his mother. The smell of the cafeteria, just normal food, sometimes triggers memories of the field hospital, of the smell of wounds and death. People thank me for my service sometimes. When they find out I was a nurse in World War II, they call me a hero. Tell me I saved lives. Tell me I should be proud. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like a witness to the worst things humans can do to each other, a witness to boys dying in agony far from home, a witness to the absolute failure of medicine, of humanity, of everything we claim to believe in it. Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. We didn't save most of them. For every soldier who made it, 3 didn't. For every successful surgery, there were 5 we couldn't perform because the wounds were too severe, or we didn't have the supplies, or they'd already bled out before they reached us. We did our best. We worked until we collapsed. We gave everything we had. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. The posters called us angels of mercy, but there's no mercy in war. There's no angels. There's just people trying desperately to put back together what war has torn apart and failing most of the time. I think about Private Parker sometimes, that boy on the ship who asked if I was scared. I told him we'd be okay. I lied. He wasn't okay. Betty wasn't okay. Dorothy wasn't okay. Helen wasn't okay. None of the thousands of boys who passed through our hands were truly okay. The ones who died obviously weren't, but the ones who survived, they weren't okay either. Missing limbs, missing pieces of themselves, carrying scars that would never heal. We weren't okay. The nurses, the doctors, the medics, we all came back different, broken in ways that don't show up on x-rays. 20 years later, I'm still on that beach, still kneeling in bloody sand, still watching boys die, still hearing them call for their mothers, still smelling the smell of death and seawater and cordite, still failing to save them. They tell me I should be proud of my service, that I made a difference, that I helped win the war. Maybe I did. I don't know. What I know is that I carry the weight of every boy who died in my arms, every face, every name, every desperate plea for help that I couldn't answer. Private James Parker, Private First Class Michael Romano, Corporal David Chen, Sergeant Frank Morrison, Lieutenant Thomas Bradford, hundreds of others whose names I've forgotten but whose faces I still see, and Betty Williams, my friend, my fellow nurse, who died trying to help, trying to heal, trying to make something better in the middle of hell. We were supposed to be angels of mercy. But angels don't carry this much weight. Angels don't have nightmares. Angels don't break. We were just people doing an impossible job in impossible circumstances, failing more often than we succeeded, surviving when maybe we shouldn't have. I came home from Normandy in 1945, but I never really left that beach. None of us did. We're all still there, kneeling in the sand, trying to save boys who can't be saved. The war ended 20 years ago. For us, it never ends. Never.